On today's broadcast, the government announces the plan to open the nation's rice market by 2015. The National Assembly will open an extra session to handle the special law on the Sewol Ferry investigation. And 121 bodies and a black box are recovered from the downed passenger jet in Ukraine. This is KBS World Radio News. I'm Eugene Huang. South Korea will open its rice market with import tariffs after 2 decades of delaying the opening of the market for its staple grain. The decision comes as the government believes it would be better to open the market rather than to have the rice import quota increase even more in return for yet another delay. Our Bijion has more.
The government will fully open South Korea's rice market starting from January 1st, 2015. Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs Minister Lee Dong-pil announced the decision on Friday in a news conference in Seoul. He said it is inevitable and the best available option.
If we delay the opening of the rice market and tariffication again, the rise in import quota will shrink the rice industry.
During the Uruguay round negotiations in 1994, tariffication rules were adopted on all agricultural products. With the deal to end in December this year, South Korea has held off opening the market for staple grain twice, keeping rice imports under the minimum market access. Instead, Seoul agreed to gradually increasing its import quota. The quota reached 409,000 tons this year, making it 9% of last year's average rice consumption. When considering the growing decline in rice consumption, the quota is a burden on the nation's rice supply and demand. The government will devise measures to minimize damage on domestic rice farms in the wake of the rice market opening. The minister said the government will also seek to set the highest tariff rates possible within scopes of World Trade Organization agreements to protect domestic rice industries. He said rice will be excluded from tariff concessions in all free trade agreements that will be signed, even if South Korea joins the Trans-Pacific Partnership. He said the government will continuously work to boost the competitiveness for Korean rice in order to be prepared in the long run for competition against imported rice. He added the government will devise substantial plans to develop domestic rice industries after gathering opinions from the National Assembly and agricultural communities. The government will inform the WTO by the end of September of its plans to open the rice market and conclude within this year necessary procedures, including revisions to related laws. KGN KBS World Radio News.
Korean farmers are split over the government's decision to open up the rice market. The Korean Peasants League, a major association of Korean farmers across the country, strongly opposed the government's decision to open the domestic rice market. Yet the Korean Advanced Farmers Association, or KAFA, the largest association of farmers in Korea, says the move is inevitable. The Korean Peasants League said in a statement that the government proved it has no intention to open dialogue with the farmers by making what it called a unilateral decision. The group added the day will go down in history as the most disastrous day for Korea's agricultural policy. It said the government has abandoned food sovereignty and the farmers must protect it instead. KAFA also issued a statement but defended the government's decision. It said it is more important to come up with measures to minimize the negative outcomes of the opening of the rice market. KAFA said imposing high-rate tariffs on imported rice will be an efficient way to curb the adverse effect of the rice market's opening. It said the government should consider giving 400 to 500% tariffs. Rival parties also issued mixed reactions to the plan to open up the rice market. The ruling Saenuri Party spokeswoman Min Hyun-ju said the government's decision is a difficult move, but unavoidable, and the most realistic measure the government can take. In a briefing Friday, she urged the government to do its best in its negotiations with the World Trade Organization so Korea can impose the highest possible tariff rates on imported rice. The main opposition, New Politics Alliance for Democracy, on the other hand, criticized the government's decision, calling it a unilateral move with no regard to the farmers and the public. NPAD Pro leader Park Young-sun said the NPAD is not completely against the opening of the market, but wants the issue to be up for public discussion and the government to prepare for countermeasures. A month-long extraordinary parliamentary session to handle the special law for the probe into the Sewol Ferry disaster will begin on July 21st. National Assembly Speaker Chung Lee-ha issued on Friday a notice announcing the July extra session upon the request of the ruling and opposition camps. The parties had originally planned to pass the bill during a plenary session on July 16th, but that plan fell apart as they failed to narrow their differences over granting investigative rights to a probe committee under the special law. The main opposition, New Politics Alliance for Democracy, claims the investigative rights should be given to the committee under the law for the sake of a thorough investigation. However, the ruling Samuel Party argues that doing so would shake the foundation of the criminal justice system, suggesting that a prosecutor system could be introduced instead. The rival parties also remain divided over whether they should be given the right to recommend members to the probe committee. Meanwhile, some bereaved family members of the Sewol disaster victims continue to stage a hunger strike outside the National Assembly, calling on the lawmakers to grant the probe committee not only the right of investigation, but also of indictment. One more body was recovered from the sinking ferry on Friday, which marks the 94th day of the disaster. The death toll stands at 294, with 10 still unaccounted for. 121 bodies are known to have been recovered as of 7 a.m. Friday local time from the Malaysian Airlines flight that was downed in Ukraine Thursday. The statement was made by the Ukraine Emergency Headquarters. It added that 95 rescuers and 18 rescue vehicles were dispatched to this site. Meanwhile, pro-Russian rebels said they recovered the flight's black box data recorder and sent it to the Russian Federal Aviation Committee, which will be reviewing the data. The Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe said it agreed with the rebels to have an international search team dispatched to the crash site. The Malaysia Airlines plane carrying 298 people was brought down in eastern Ukraine on Thursday. All those on board the flight are presumed to have been killed. A U.S. official said a surface-to-air missile is believed to have been used to shoot the plane down. The South Korean government says it appears there were no Korean passengers on board the ill-fated plane. South Korea has expressed regret over Pyongyang placing the blame on Seoul for Thursday's failed talks on the Incheon Asian Games and called for the North to take a sincere attitude. A South Korean government official said Friday that the North is making an absurd claim, saying that South Korean negotiators were following instructions from the presidential office. The official said during Thursday's talks, Seoul told Pyongyang that it should abide by global practices and tournament regulations regarding the participation of its athletes and cheering squad in the upcoming games. He said the South conveyed that the accommodations for the North's athletes and cheering squad will be reviewed based on international customs. The South also noted it would be better for the cheering team to refrain from using a large North Korean flag for safety reasons. The official said the North Korean delegation then abruptly walked out of the meeting and distorted the South's efforts to confirm necessary logistical details. Earlier, the North's official Korean Central News Agency said the South's stance on the size of the cheering squad and its proposal that the North should pay the expenses during the Asian Games were unreasonable. The report said that if Seoul's stance does not change, the North could reconsider its decision to take part in the Games. South Korea and Japan will hold Director General level talks in Seoul on Japan's wartime sex slavery issue on July 23rd. Seoul's foreign ministry said Friday that two sides will discuss ways to address the issue of sex slavery, as well as Tokyo's recent review of the Kono Statement. Both sides had agreed to hold monthly working-level meetings on the issue prior to the Korea-U.S.-Japan summit in March, and met in April and May. But the talks were suspended due to Japan's recent review of the 1993 Kono Statement, which served as Japan's confession for the enslavement of women during World War II for sexual purposes. The South Korean movie Snowpiercer opened in U.S. theaters last month and is continuing its popularity in secondary distribution channels. The sci-fi thriller ranked first on iTunes just one day after it was released on video on demand. Our Kim So-yeon has more on the film's success.
The hit Korean motion picture Snowpiercer, which has raked in over $2 million in box office revenue in the U.S., is also attracting movie lovers in secondary distribution channels, such as video on demand. The movie's domestic distributor, CJ said Friday that Snowpiercer beat The Wolf of Wall Street and ranked first on iTunes just one day after its VOD service began. The thriller also remains in the top ranks in the charts of other major U.S. VOD service providers, including YouTube, Vudu, Google Play, Comcast, and DirecTV, as of Thursday U.S. time. Snowpiercer, directed by Bong Joon-ho, opened on 8 screens in the U.S. on June 27th and expanded to some 350 screens in just 11 days. So far, it has earned over $2.6 million in ticket sales in America. Since last Friday, the movie has also been offered to American viewers through the Super Premium Video On Demand service. Through this service, viewers can watch a new movie on VOD as well as in theaters, unlike the regular VOD service that offers films 3 months after it's been released on screen. It is the first time in the U.S. that a movie released in over 350 screens can be viewed on VOD at the same time. Tom Quinn, co-president of Radius TWC, the U.S. distributor of Snowpiercer, said the sci-fi film has shattered the belief that theater and VOD platforms cannot go hand-in-hand in Hollywood, calling the simultaneous release a game-changer. Based on a French graphic novel about inhabitants on board an ever-moving train, the movie was released in Korea last year and drew 9.27 million viewers. Kim So-yeon, KBS World Radio News.
And that's the news from KBS World Radio's News Center in Seoul. I'm using You can also catch the news from